What's up, guys? In this video, I am going to be going over a free script or a couple of free scripts that I found online with a simple Google search versus an $18,000 script. Now, you might be wondering, John, why the heck would you pay $18,000 for a script? And the truth is, the script alone is not $18,000. It's the sales process. That being said, if a better script and better questions help you close one more deal, you get all of your money back, and then every deal you close after that is pure profit. So what I'm going to be breaking down is the psychology, the things that actually matter, the things that I paid for, the tonality, the psychology, why you're asking the questions, when to ask the questions to be able to close more deals. If you're new to this channel, all we do is we help individual wholesalers get to 100K a month. And then from there, teach them how to get their sales reps to 100K a month so they can scale their business to multiple seven figures. And if you're already subscribed, welcome back. I've got another banger for you guys. Now, it's important to note that even though these scripts were free, I did have to go online and put in my email and give them some sort of information. They're probably going to call me and try to sell me something. So I'm not just going to like pull up the exact scripts word for word. I threw both of these scripts into ChatGPT and asked them to change the wording so that way I can use them in this video. So these are not going to be exactly word for word the scripts that I found online. You know, if you guys want these scripts, you guys want to go look online, you have to go into their funnel and you have to go put in your information to get them. But this is pretty similar. And you're going to notice that of all of the scripts that I could get for free without having to pay for anything, some of them say like free cold call script, but you have to go pay $9 to sign up for their platform. They're very, very similar. And the one I'm going to show you guys today is going to be completely different. So let's jump right into it. Okay, so first things first is how you actually start the call. Now, this might sound super subtle, but it makes a big difference. I'm going to show you the psychology of why. First script says, hi, or hey, is this question mark? Very similar to the other free script that I found online. Hi, I'm trying to reach John. I'm trying to reach Jim. Is this them? Right? So before we go into anything else, what happens when you say, is this blank? What does the seller think? This is someone that's calling me out of the blue and they don't know me, right? So immediately what happens is their walls go up. And so it takes about 7 seconds for a prospect to recognize a sales call. Somebody calls you out of the blue, your brain is automatically going, okay, what is this call about? And the second you realize it's a sales call, your walls go up. So right now, if you're using a script and you're getting hit right away with not interested, before you even got into like, hey, I've got a property, or I want to buy your property or anything like that, they just say not interested right out the bat. The reason that that's happening is because the prospect automatically recognizes that this is a sales call. And so they just put their walls up or they try to hang up on the phone, right? So what we need to master is something called a pattern interrupt. Now I'm going to go into that in a second, but when we call, we don't want to say, hey, is this question mark? It shows that we don't know them. And obviously we don't yet, and they might be aware of that later on in the call, but we want to trigger a little bit of curiosity. So here's how we do that. Instead of saying, hey, is this, we're going to say, hey, Bob, can you hear me? They're going to go, yeah, who is this? Or you have a worst case scenario where they're like, no, this isn't Bob. Who is this? Right. And then you can go, oh yeah, I was looking for Bob, but I'm not sure if it makes sense for us to talk. You wouldn't happen to be the owner of 123 Main Street, right? Now you can go into that if it's not the right person. But the first thing we need to do is go, hey, Bob, can you hear me? And it triggers some curiosity. Now we want to use a familiar tone after that. So that way they let their guard down. So first things first, do not start your call with, is this? Right? Is this immediately triggers resistance, especially if you're doing some sort of inbound lead. We'll look at both of these scripts. This one was, I was curious, would you consider selling your property if the offer made sense? Right out the gate, we don't have any context about the property. They don't know who we are. So that's going to be a bad question to ask. Now let's look at the other one. I'm reaching out about the property on 123 Main Street. Are you the owner? Actually, this is even worse. So this one would trigger even more resistance. So this one says, how's your day going so far? All right. This is a huge mistake that salespeople make is they'll ask a question like, how's your day going so far? So just imagine this, like put yourself in the seller's shoes for a second. Somebody calls you and says, hey, is this Jacob? And you're like, yeah, who is this? What do you want? And he goes, how's your day going so far? You're gonna be like, what the hell do you want? Like, why do you care how my day's going? Now, I'm not going to say that everyone's like that. Like, especially if you're calling like sweet old women in the Midwest, they might open up and they might be like, I'm doing pretty good, sweetheart. How are you? Most of our sellers do not though. Most of our sellers do not respond that way. You do not want to ask the seller how they're doing in the first 5 seconds of your phone call. What that's going to do is it's going to trigger resistance because they know you don't care how they're doing. They don't even know who you are. So they're just gonna be like, good, what do you want? Right? If that, or they might even just hang up. Like every time I do a presentation, I'm speaking in front of people, I always ask the question, what would you do if somebody called you out of the blue and asked how you're doing? And most of the people say, I would just hang up. I'm a little bit nicer than that. Like I might be like, good, what do you want? But most people will hang up. And so you're immediately triggering resistance in the first couple seconds of your call. Now, this is cold calling, inbound, working leads. You don't open your call with, hey, how are you doing today? Or how's your day going? So big mistake number 2. And I'm going to show you guys in a second how to actually open up the call. Now let's look at where it goes from there. This script sounds something similar. It's like I'm reaching out about your property, the owner. I was recently in the neighborhood and noticed the area. Okay. I figured I'd see if any of the homeowners might be open to getting a cash offer on your property. All right. Now this one is very similar. It's just, would you consider selling your property if the offer made sense? Here's one of the common mistakes that cold callers make. They take an approach that I want to buy your property. And if you hit them with, I want to buy your property, what does the seller think? They think, I have something that this person wants, so I have the upper hand, right? What's going to happen there is they're typically going to hit you with, okay, if you want to buy it, what's your offer? How much are you offering? If you want to buy it, why do you want to buy it, right? And so it's already starting the sales call in the wrong direction, right? So they're going, I have something that he wants, I have the upper hand. So let me show you guys a better way to just start your cold call before we go into anything else. We want to pattern interrupt the seller. And so what a pattern interrupt is, let's say that you're walking down the street and you're walking down the street, your brain's constantly picking up on patterns. It does that to save energy. Your brain is wired to save energy. If every time you walked past somebody, you went into fight or flight, you'd be exhausted by the end of the day. So you might go, okay, that's an old lady. That's a family walking nearby. They're safe. And then you see somebody walking with a hoodie and they've got tattoos all over their face and they're walking all sketchy. Like it's 90 degrees out. I just got back from Austin. It was like 9 degrees out. There were guys walking with like hoodies, black hoodies with their hands in their pocket. I'm like, okay, I'm a little sketched out by them, right? My brain picks up on a pattern and goes, that might be a threat. The same way sellers pick up on a pattern when they hear salespeople and they think this might be a threat. Let me put my walls up. And that's why they're so resistant. So we need to break that pattern in their brain. So what I like to do is I like to print out, just have some sort of papers. And if you can ruffle them really close to the microphone, like you're actually flipping through papers, it helps even more. So I would do something like this. Hey, Jerry, can you hear me? They're like, yeah, who's this? Yeah, it's just John. It's John Lallande. I'm calling out of Orange County. Hey, I'm holding a copy of your property tax records on your home there on 123 Main Street. I was wondering if you could possibly help me out for a moment. Now, this is not going to close the deal, but what it's going to do is it is going to trigger curiosity in their brain. They're going to be like, hold on, why are you holding a copy of my property tax records? What's going on? What's this about? They're not going to go, not interested. You're holding a copy of their property tax records. They have no idea who you are. And all this is designed to do is just break the pattern in their brain from this is a cold call to this is something I should pay attention to. So I'm holding a copy of your property tax records on your home on 123 Main Street. I was wondering if you could possibly help me out for a moment. Now, the tone is extremely important. You don't want to just sound like a robot and say, hey, I'm holding a copy of your property tax records on your home there on 123 Main Street. I was wondering if you could possibly help me out for a moment. You need to sound curious. You need to trigger curiosity in the seller's brain. Now, once you do that, the seller's typically going to hit you with like, why are you holding a copy of my property tax records? Or what's this about? What's going on? What can I help you with? Something like that, right? So you need to be prepared for any of those questions. So if they say like, why are you holding a copy of my tax records? I say, yeah, my team just dumped a bunch of these on my desk and I'm not really sure it makes sense for us to talk. Let's say they don't say, why are you holding? They just say, how can I help you? Or what do you need help with? I would just go, yeah, you know what? I'm not even sure it makes sense for us to talk. Actually, I represent a group of buyers that are buying 5 to 6 different homes in this little neighborhood that your Main Street home's in. And after seeing yours, they had me call you to see if you'd be opposed to having a brief conversation about the home. I guess, would you be opposed to that? Now, what I'm doing is I'm not saying that I'm necessarily interested in their property. So if they hit me with, well, what's your offer? I can always go back to, yeah, I'm not really sure yet. I'm not even sure that we would buy this property yet. That's what this conversation's for. What I could do is ask you a couple questions about the property, the condition, and if you were to sell it, when you would want to do that, just to see if going over an offer makes sense. I am not the needy salesperson wanting their house anymore. I'm representing a group of investors. I'm not even sure if I want to buy it, which is the truth, right? I don't know if I want to buy this property yet. I'm representing a group of investors and we're just considering possibly buying the house. This is going to get you much further into your conversation. Now I'm going to add one more thing that I added there, which is, would you be opposed to having a brief conversation about the home? This is a very powerful phrase. Would you be opposed? When you say, would you be opposed? It's hard for a seller to say, yes, I would be opposed. Yes, I'm opposed. Like, it's not impossible for them to say it, but sellers do not want, and just people in general, do not want to say yes in the beginning of a sales call. No is their safe word. Chris Voss talks a lot about this, is going for no. No is the safe word. So they are more inclined to say the word no. So if you say, would you be opposed to having a brief conversation? No, I guess I'm not opposed. Like, what is this about? And there's our first part. What we don't want to do is we don't want to go right into why are you looking to sell? So that's the next thing that this script does. And I'm going to tell you why. If you guys have ever made a cold call, you know this, right? So it says, fine, why are you calling? I'm reaching out about your property. I was wondering if you'd be open to getting a cash offer. They're more than likely going to say no to that. But let's say they say, okay, actually, I have been thinking about selling. And then you're going to go, okay, got it. What's got you thinking about selling? What's going to happen here is the seller's likely going to say, I don't know, you called me. Or why is that relevant? It's way too early in the sales conversation to ask a question about motivation. Now, this is better than asking a question like, what's your motivation behind selling? Like, it's better than that. I'll give them this. But asking in the first like 3 to 4 questions, I don't know how many that is, but whatever, 4 to 5 questions, what's got you thinking about selling? The seller still has their wall up. So if you guys go out and try this and then try the way that I'm going to show you, and you're going to be able to see the difference. You're not going to ask a seller in the first couple seconds, what's got you thinking about selling, especially on a cold call where you just called them out of the blue. So let's take a look at this difference. So it looks like this one says prospect says maybe. Would you be okay? So this one just goes straight for a follow-up, which is terrible. In the meantime, I can send you information. So they just basically quit. Want a specific price. Let's see. Okay, so this one actually doesn't have anything past. I'm curious if you'd be considering selling your property for an offer that makes sense. So this is basically just like the first 3 questions. So this one doesn't have any scripts. Let's see if this one's got anything else. So now we just go into the condition. So let me talk to you guys about the psychology around price-based thinking versus result-based thinking. When you ask surface level questions, like you just get motivation and then you move on, you get your time frame, your condition of the property and their asking price. The seller stays in price-based thinking. They stay in the logical part of the brain. Logical part of the brain, it's all they're thinking about is maximizing value. What we teach is a needs-based approach. So what we want to figure out, we want to find their vein. What is the problem they're dealing with? What is that actually doing to them? What are they trying to accomplish? How much do they need to be able to accomplish that result? Instead of asking the seller, how much are you looking to get for the property or what's a fair asking price for the property? We're going to say, how much do you need to solve that problem? And here's why. Oftentimes, we can help the seller solve a problem. They are trying to move to a nicer neighborhood. Might be able to get them enough for a down payment. If they are trying to pay off some credit card debt, we could probably pay off their credit card debt. However, most often we can't get them what they want. And this is the problem with a bunch of other sales they call themselves like sales programs, but they're not really sales programs. They're more like fishing programs. So basically you're just calling around until you have somebody that, their asking price lines up with what you can offer. And if it doesn't, you don't have any skills to be able to get them lower on price. That's not sales. And that will result in you closing on cold call leads, like 1 out of 60, 1 out of 70. I've even seen like 1 out of 150 versus where you should be, which is 1 out of 30 cold call leads. That being said, how we're going to do the call from there is going to be completely different. We're going to say, would you be opposed to having a brief conversation? They're going to say, no, I'm not opposed to it. I don't know if I want to sell it yet. Yeah, and that's not a problem. You could be better off just keeping it. That's why we're calling. This first call is just to find out a little bit more about the property, like the condition it's in and when you'd possibly be looking to sell, just to see if it makes sense for us to explore an offer. Are you with me there? Seller says yes. Then we go into, okay, so walk me through the house. Do you live there? Is it a rental for you? What's going on with it? We break down our 3 different avatars. We break it down into homeowners, investors, and vacant properties. Homeowners, what do we know about them? They're going to be moving after the sale. Investors, what do we know about them? They have tenants, right? We're going to ask them questions about the tenants. Vacant properties, it's been sitting vacant. It's not making them any money. So they're probably going to get some money out of it to use for something else. So I'll give you an example with a homeowner. My first question might be, oh, really? And I know we called you out of the blue and you probably get tons of calls about this, but if you did sell, ideally, where would you want to go next? Well, I guess I'd want to go down to Texas. Oh, Texas. Why there though? We're going to start finding our vein. So in this example, let's say the seller says, well, I'm in Southern California. It's getting a little bit expensive. Say expensive in what way? Or we'll start going into that problem until they actually start to feel the urgency. Once they feel the urgency, we've built that urgency, then we can go into our future state. I'm not going to go through the entire script, but I'll walk you through like very simply what this will look like once you actually get into the sales conversation. So the first thing, like we covered, is we need to do a pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupt is going to lower their guard. It's going to trigger curiosity in their brain. The next thing we're going to do is ask the would you be opposed question. Would you be opposed to having a brief conversation about the home? There we're going to set the stage, and that just is exactly like I just went over. Yeah, in this first call, it's going to be pretty basic. It's more for us to find out a little bit more about the property, the condition, and when you'd possibly want to sell, because you might be better off just keeping the house, or just to see if it makes sense for us to go over an offer. I'm still going to stay stay extremely neutral here. After I set the stage, I want to identify the avatar. Who am I speaking to? Is it a homeowner? Is it an investor? It's a vacant property. Once I do that, I'm going to find the vein, which is essentially finding the problem that they're dealing with. Once I have the problem, I want to get the problem impact. And so let's say, for example, seller says California is getting too expensive. What is that doing to them? What's coming up that's making them feel like that? They might be barely keeping up on their bills. They might be missing mortgage payments. They might be behind on their taxes, right? And what's that actually doing to them? Getting the problem impact. This is what takes them away from highest price possible into actually solving their problem. Once we have that, I need to get their future state, which their future state is what are they trying to accomplish? So this person already told me that they're moving to Texas, but I might find out, are they renting? Are they buying? So then I can ask the right question, which is going into needs. And I'm going to do a needs and anchor. And so instead of asking, how much are you looking to get for the property right out the gate, I'm going to say, how much do you need to be able to get to Houston? How much do you need in your pocket to pay off all your medical debt? I'm focusing on needs, not just how much are you looking to get for the property. If you guys have ever asked, how much are you looking to get for the property? You know, the seller's brain goes to the Zillow price. They go to the highest number that they can think of, which is not a price that we can actually pay. Once I have the needs and anchor, I'm going to go into my obstacles. Now, inside of obstacles, what this is like, what's your time frame? What's the condition of the property? Who else needs to know that you're selling the property? Let's say that we were able to close in 3 weeks. Would you be able to get all your stuff out? Any objections that would come up? And the last part of this is a commitment. Okay, so what this looks like is, let's say that I could get you X, Y, and Z. So let's say I can get you the $15,000 so you can move down to Houston. Let's say we can do this in 60 days so you have time to move all of your stuff, and we give you that guaranteed closing incentive that you were looking for. If we can do all of that, what would be your biggest concern at that point? I want to keep going through that process until I've eliminated all of their objections. And then from there, I say, what would you want the next steps to be? So I get a commitment before I ever present the offer. This is going to stop you from being price shopped. That is our cold call script. That is why people pay $18,000, $20,000 for, it's not a script. It's going to be a sales process, because if you use that, you might have to talk to 150 people to get one deal. Where you use an advanced script that teaches you the psychology behind selling, it might be 1 out of 30, which could be $18,000, $20,000, maybe even $50,000 a month. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to give this script away. I'm going to drop it in the description. All you need to do is request access to it. I'm going to put the free cold call script in the description of this video so you guys have access to it. That's all we have for this one. Make sure you guys like and subscribe for new videos like this every single week. Bye, guys.